Have you ever considered how being a member of a specific generational cohort might be impacting your health and longevity? Hi, it's Nancy Beauvair here with Agape and Next Steps, and that's the topic I'd like to discuss for this week. I was out on my daily walk the other day and I was thinking about how the various generations have embraced exercise and how life has unfolded has impacted those very factors. So, for instance, if we're going to talk about my parents' generation, the silent generation, they largely were working in a more physical capacity. They didn't have the luxuries that we have nowadays. They didn't have the luxuries that I had growing up. Cars were very expensive, therefore they walked or took public transit wherever they were going. A lot of the jobs were much more reliant on physical labor. There weren't as many white-collar office jobs available. Education was not something that the majority of people obtained. They were able to get jobs and provide for their families, often with less than high school. Then my generation, the boomers, they came along and vehicles started becoming a bit more accessible. Television became more mainstream. There was a bit more time spent in front of televisions, and there was started to become more white-collar jobs. Technology was just starting to emerge. But I still remember as a child, we didn't have a lot of screen time. We didn't watch TV a lot. I remember hide and seek. I remember playing Red Rover, all of those things. I live in a community that was built in the 50s. And one of the things that I miss in the newer, more vibrant neighborhoods of the inner city is this community, even though I'm only 10 minutes from the core of the city, this community has a lot of green space. And I remember those green spaces when I was growing up. After supper, all the kids would get together in the park and they'd play touch football or play frisbee or just get together with their friends, run and play. Those things aren't happening anymore because the newer generations have more technology. It's interesting as well, when I walk around my neighborhood, there are a lot of properties that are being purchased and there's infills going in. So where there was one house with a large yard, there are now two infills with practically no yard. And that's a reflection of our day and age as well. We don't have people as interested in being outside and engaging in those activities that I did as a child and you probably did as a child. These days, people are more spending time watching TV or streaming things on their phone or their tablets. It just seems like there is not as much activity. The Gen X's kind of bridged that a little bit. They were kind of the transitional generation between the boomers and our very, very rudimentary introduction to technology as we were growing up, and the millennials who really were born into a digital age. Now, how this has changed over time is the boomers did actually make a shift because there were more jobs that were more sedentary. They did make a shift to joining things like aerobics classes and gyms and making more of a focus on getting some activity, getting some exercise. Gen X has kind of carried that on. The millennials grew up in an era where there's all kinds of downloadable fitness apps. They also became more aware of mental health and work-life balance, which is something that had been lacking for generations before. The millennials and the Gen Zs certainly do make a better focus on nutrition, health, life balance, creating that. However, that's kind of bundled up with a much more sedentary lifestyle. It's like nowadays, to remain active and to be fit is almost like a second job. You have to make the time for it. You have to fit that into your schedule. But it's a very important thing to fit into your schedule because it does impact your longevity. Now, my parents' generation, the silent generation, they ate more wholesome. It was before factory farm or right around the time that factory farming, around the end of World War II, when that started coming into play. So they had more wholesome food and they had much more day-to-day activity. So even though they had a shorter life expectancy, that was more due to the fact that there weren't as many health supports, interventions. There were no vaccines. There were no vaccines for certain ailments when I was growing up. So we just got the chicken pox, we got the measles, and we either died or we built a resistance to it and we got better. So my parents' generation, it was the same. And as a result, they have a shorter life expectancy. But all of that activity that they engaged in did keep them, for the most part, healthier for the duration of their life. Then, as the boomers started and as we've transitioned into more and more sedentary lifestyles, the incidences of obesity, diabetes, cardiovascular issues, all of these issues are becoming quite serious and a serious drain on our health systems. We have tons of medical interventions. We can do joint replacements, we can replace hearts, we can do all kinds of transplants and keep people alive much longer. But wouldn't it be interesting if we all really did make an effort to integrate physical activity into our day-to-day lives and just see what an impact that might have on the cost of our healthcare and how we age a little bit healthier and better without the need for some of these medical interventions. Just a little bit of food for thought. I'd love to hear your comments about it. Please drop them into the comment section, or by all means, please just hop over to my website. I've got a more detailed article in there that goes into a bit more detail about this topic, and I look forward to seeing you again next time. Bye for now.